Prince Harry has officially touched down in Toronto, and this trip is already turning heads for all the right reasons. Forget palace drama, PR games, or royal rivalries. This visit is about purpose, service, and connection. Harry's back in a city that carries deep personal meaning for him. It's where his modern chapter began, and this time his visit isn't about headlines or photo ops. It's about honouring veterans, supporting military families, and championing causes that have always been close to his heart. This trip was organised in collaboration with True Patriot Love Foundation, a respected Canadian organisation that aids current and former service members. And if the timing feels deliberate, that's because it is. The visit comes right before Remembrance Day, one of the most important dates on the military calendar. Sources close to Harry's team say this trip has been quietly in the works for nearly a year, meticulously planned to emphasise continuity, duty, and compassion. Throughout his stay, Harry's schedule has been packed. He's meeting reservists from both the Queen's Own Rifles of Canada and the Royal Regiment of Canada, connecting with part-time soldiers who balance their military responsibilities alongside everyday jobs. He's also paying visits to Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre, one of the largest veterans' hospitals in the country, to spend time with recovering service members and their families. But what makes these hospital visits particularly meaningful is how Harry approaches them. These aren't quick photo opportunities followed by a motorcade exit. He sits down with veterans who've lost limbs, who struggle with PTSD, who wake up every night reliving combat experiences. He shares his own journey with therapy and mental health advocacy, creating space for honest conversations that many veterans rarely get to have with someone who truly understands. The medical staff at Sunnybrook have noted how different his visits feel compared to typical VIP appearances. There's no entourage hovering, no handlers rushing him along. Instead, there's genuine curiosity, active listening, and the kind of presence that only comes from someone who's walked a similar path. Harry knows what it's like to serve, to lose brothers in arms, to carry invisible wounds home from deployment. He's attending fundraising events, speaking with leaders of veterans' initiatives, and taking part in ceremonies dedicated to honouring those who've served. Every part of this trip reflects something deeply authentic about who Harry is today, a man who traded royal obligations for meaningful service. And let's be honest, the symbolism here is powerful. Toronto isn't just another stop on a map for Harry. It's the city where he and Meghan first stepped into the public eye during the 2017 Invictus Games, a moment that marked the start of a new era for both of them. Now, years later, he returns not as a prince defined by palace expectations, but as a veteran and humanitarian standing shoulder to shoulder with those who understand his journey. What's fascinating is how differently the media across the world are covering this trip. Canadian outlets are reporting the visit as what it truly is, a service-centred mission filled with empathy and gratitude. The tone is respectful and focused on the work. For example, outlets like Global News, CTV and the Toronto Star ran simple factual headlines such as "Prince Harry in Toronto for veterans events ahead of Remembrance Day." No drama, no rivalry, no unnecessary spin. They're treating him as what he is, a man dedicated to supporting others. Now contrast that with the British press. As usual, they can't help but twist things into palace soap opera territory. Some UK tabloids ran headlines implying that Harry's visit was a move to overshadow his brother, Prince William, who happened to be in Brazil for his Earthshot Prize engagements. You'd think two brothers working on entirely separate causes could exist in peace, but not in the tabloids world. They spun Harry's veteran outreach into a supposed rival PR stunt, because heaven forbid he does something meaningful without being accused of competition. One publication even used the phrase "revenge tour," as if showing support to veterans could possibly be an act of vengeance. Others obsessed over trivial details, like which baseball team he supports while in Canada, completely ignoring the actual point of his visit. It's a prime example of how the British press continues to distort Harry's every move to fit a tired royal rivalry narrative. The absurdity reaches new heights when you consider the logistics alone. These trips are planned months in advance, coordinated with multiple organisations, security teams and government officials. The idea that Harry scheduled a year-long planned Veterans Initiative just to coincide with his brother's environmental summit is laughable. Yet that's the story certain outlets chose to tell. Meanwhile, Canadians are simply saying, "Welcome back, Captain Wales." They see him for who he truly is, a veteran with empathy, humour and purpose. And that's what makes this trip so refreshing. It's also proof of how Harry's image has evolved. Years ago, the media painted him as the rebellious prince. Today, he's recognised globally as a man of integrity and action. His commitment to causes like mental health, wounded soldiers and veteran reintegration isn't performative, it's personal. When Harry meets with reservists, he doesn't just show up to give speeches. He listens. He asks about their families, their experiences, their challenges transitioning back into civilian life. This is the same empathy that inspired him to create the Invictus Games, and it continues to guide his work today. During one meeting with reservists, Harry spent nearly an hour discussing the unique struggles of part-time soldiers, those who deploy for months at a time, then return home to resume civilian careers as teachers, engineers, paramedics. The psychological whiplash of switching between war zones and school parent-teacher conferences, between life or death decisions and grocery shopping, is something the public rarely understands. But Harry gets it. He asks the questions that matter. How do your employers support you? How do your families cope? What resources are missing? These conversations reveal something crucial about Harry's approach to advocacy. He's not interested in surface-level awareness campaigns or celebrity endorsements that begin and end with an Instagram post. He wants to understand systemic problems so he can push for systemic solutions. That's why organisations like True Patriot Love Foundation value his involvement. He shows up, prepared, engaged, and committed for the long haul. He's showing that true leadership isn't about titles or hierarchies, it's about using your influence to serve others. And that's exactly what makes the tabloids' attempts to trivialise him so absurd. They can't handle the idea that Harry has carved out a meaningful identity completely independent of the monarchy. Let's be clear, if Harry were irrelevant, the British press wouldn't monitor his every step. They wouldn't churn out endless think pieces every time he boards a plane. Their obsession proves his ongoing global influence, even if they'd never admit it out loud. In Canada, however, the tone is drastically different. The coverage there has been mature, calm, and genuinely supportive. Journalists are focusing on the work, not the gossip. They understand that this trip isn't about spectacle, it's about substance. And the public response has been overwhelmingly positive. Comments under Canadian news stories are filled with appreciation. People are thanking Harry for his service, for shining a light on veterans' issues, and for continuing to lead by example long after stepping away from royal duties. It's refreshing to see a country that views him through a lens of respect rather than resentment. The difference between the Canadian and British media cultures couldn't be clearer. In one, he's a respected humanitarian. In the other, he's treated like a character in a never-ending soap opera. And let's talk about how full circle this moment feels. Toronto is the same city where Meghan lived while filming Suits, and where she and Harry's love story first blossomed in public view. It's also the birthplace of the Invictus Games global recognition, one of Harry's proudest legacies. The 2017 Invictus Games in Toronto marked a turning point not just in Harry's personal life, but in how the world understood adaptive sports and veteran rehabilitation. Athletes from 17 nations competed in events specifically designed for wounded, injured and sick servicemen and women. The Games proved that recovery isn't just about physical healing, it's about reclaiming identity, purpose and joy after trauma. Harry founded Invictus in 2014 after witnessing the Warrior Games in the United States, but Toronto took the concept global. The city embraced the athletes with such warmth and enthusiasm that it set a new standard for every Games that followed. Watching wounded warriors compete in wheelchair basketball, sitting volleyball and indoor rowing, Canadians didn't see disability. They saw determination, courage and the unbreakable human spirit. That energy still resonates in Toronto today. When veterans hear that Harry's back in town, they remember those 2017 moments, the standing ovations, the tears of joy, the feeling of being celebrated rather than pitied. That's the legacy he's building, event by event, conversation by conversation. Now he's back more grounded, more focused and more fulfilled than ever. His visit embodies a quiet kind of strength. He's not trying to prove anything to anyone. He's simply continuing the mission he started years ago, serving those who've served. This trip sends a powerful message. Harry isn't running from his past, he's redefining it. He's showing that duty isn't tied to bloodlines or royal orders. It's defined by compassion, commitment and action. While some British outlets fixate on how many cameras were at William's event compared to Harry's, those in Canada are focusing on the real story that a veteran returned to honour fellow veterans. And that's what Remembrance is all about. The energy surrounding this visit feels different. It's authentic, warm and deeply human. Veterans and military families in Canada aren't seeing a prince, they're seeing a comrade who understands their journey. Harry connects not through speeches or grand gestures, but through simple, genuine interactions. There's a moment that's been circulating on social media from one of Harry's hospital visits. A young veteran, barely in his 20s, lost both legs in a training accident. He's been struggling with depression, questioning whether his life still has value. Harry sat beside his bed for 30 minutes, not as a prince, not as a celebrity, but as one soldier to another. They talked about pain, about purpose, about finding reasons to keep fighting even when everything feels lost. By the end of the conversation, the young man was smiling, genuinely smiling, for the first time in weeks, according to his nurses. That's the real impact Harry has. Not in headlines or follower counts, but in individual lives forever changed by his presence and his words. This trip also underscores why his global work resonates. The issues veterans face, mental health challenges, rehabilitation struggles, family separation, transcend borders. By showing up, listening and advocating, Harry bridges those divides in a way few others can. And while the UK tabloids spiral into another round of who's more popular, Harry's out there doing what truly matters. He's turning compassion into action, showing up with humility, and proving once again that leadership isn't inherited, it's earned. In many ways, his Toronto visit has become a reflection of everything he stands for: service, empathy, and courage. He's not waiting for validation from royal institutions or media outlets. His impact speaks for itself through the lives he touches and the causes he champions. It's no wonder Canadians have embraced him so warmly. They see through the noise, they see the sincerity in his work, and honestly, so does the world. So while the British press continues to twist narratives and stir unnecessary rivalries, Harry keeps doing what he does best, leading quietly, with integrity. Toronto's proud to welcome him back, and so are those who believe that true service doesn't need a crown, it just needs heart. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. Harry isn't out to win a popularity contest or prove his worth against anyone else. He's out there living his values, walking his talk, and showing what modern service looks like in action. For millions watching around the world, it's clear he's not the spare anymore. He's the soldier, the humanitarian, the father, and the example of what purpose beyond privilege really means. As his visit unfolds, one thing stands out above all this: isn't just a trip. It's a statement. Prince Harry isn't defined by the institution he left behind. He's defined by the mission he continues to live out every single day. The veterans he meets this week won't remember the controversy or the headlines. They'll remember that someone who didn't have to show up chose to anyway. Someone who could be anywhere in the world decided to spend his time listening to their stories, honouring their sacrifices, and reminding them that their service matters. That's the Harry the world is finally beginning to see clearly, not through the distorted lens of tabloid rivalry, but through the actions that reveal who he truly is. And in Toronto this week, that message is coming through louder and clearer than ever before.